I stood in the granite archway and looked in at the graveyard. The notice board said Parish Church of St. Brelade, and the place was crammed with headstones and tombs, and here and there a granite cross reared up. There was a winged angel on the far side, I noticed that, and then thunder rumbled on the horizon and rain swept in across the bay. The porter at the hotel had given me an umbrella, and I put it up and ventured in. On Sunday in Boston, I'd never heard of the British Channel Islands off the coast of France or the island of Jersey. Now it was Thursday, and here I was, having travelled halfway round the world to seek the final answer to something that had taken 3 years out of my life. The church was very old and built of granite. I moved toward it through the tombstones, pausing to look out over the bay. The tide was out, and there was a fine sweep of golden sands extending to a concrete seawall, and I could see my hotel. I heard voices, and, turning, saw 2 men in cloth caps, sacks over their shoulders, crouching under a cypress tree by the far wall of the graveyard. They stood up and moved away, laughing together as if at some joke, and I noticed they were carrying spades. They disappeared around the back of the church, and I crossed to the wall. There was a freshly dug grave, covered with a tarpaulin, although the tree gave it some protection from the rain. I don't think I've ever felt so excited. It was as if it had been waiting for me, and I turned and moved through the headstones to the entrance of the church, opened the door and went inside. I'd expected a place of darkness and gloom, but the lights were on, and it was really very beautiful, the vaulted ceiling unusual in that it was constructed of granite. No evidence of wooden beams there at all. I walked toward the altar and stood for a moment, looking around me, aware of the quiet. There was the click of a door opening and closing. A man approached. He had white hair and eyes of the palest blue. He wore a black cassock and carried a raincoat over one arm. His voice was dry and very old, and there was a hint of Irish to it when he spoke. "Can I help you?" "Are you the rector?" "Oh, no," he smiled good-humouredly. "They put me out to grass a long time ago. My name is Cullen, Canon Donald Cullen." "You're an American?" "That's right." I shook hands. He had a surprisingly firm grip. "Alan Stacy." "Your first visit to Jersey?" "Yes," I said. "Until a few days ago, I never knew the place existed. Like most Americans, I'd only heard of New Jersey." He smiled. We moved toward the door, and he carried on. "You've chosen a bad time of the year for your first visit. Jersey can be one of the most desirable places on earth, but not usually during March." "I didn't have much choice," I said. "You're burying someone here today. Harry Martineau." He had started to pull on his raincoat and paused in surprise. "That's right. I'm performing the ceremony myself, as a matter of fact. 2 o'clock this afternoon. Are you a relative?" "Not exactly, although I sometimes feel as if I am. I'm an assistant professor of philosophy at Harvard. I've been working on a biography of Martineau for the past 3 years." "I see." He opened the door, and we went out into the porch. "Do you know much about him?" I asked. "Very little, besides the extraordinary way he met his end, and the even more extraordinary circumstance of his last rites," I said. "After all, Canon, it isn't often you get to bury a man 40 years after his death." The bungalow was at the other end of St. Brelade's Bay, close to l'Horizon Hotel, where I was staying. It was small and unpretentious, but the living room was surprisingly large, comfortable and cluttered, 2 walls lined with books. Sliding windows opened to a terrace and a small garden, the bay beyond. The tide was rushing in, the wind lifting the sea into whitecaps, and rain rattled against the window. My host came in from the kitchen and put a tray on a small table by the fire. "I hope you don't mind tea?" "Tea will be fine." "My wife was the coffee drinker in the family, but she died 3 years ago. I could never abide the stuff myself." He filled my cup and pushed it toward me as I sat down on the other side of the table from him. The silence hung